How much money you bring with you, Wade?
Okay, welcome, folks. This is House Corrections and Institutions Committee. It's Tuesday, February 10th. It's our 1 o'clock meeting. And we are starting the week with hearing from BGS in terms of their general fund budget request. We are the committee that works with BGS, and our House Appropriations Committee has asked us to weigh in on the proposed FY27 general fund budget. And as you're well aware, House Appropriations has sort of got a different focus in terms of looking at the governor's budget. They sent out a memo to all the agencies and departments back in the fall, trying to get a better grasp of all their moving pieces and not just looking at in terms of what's going up or what's going down. They're trying to get a real feel for the delivery of services to Vermonters. So that will be our focus in our questioning. How effective are the programs? What could change to make them better? Or are there some programs that we should get rid of that aren't functioning or producing outcomes that we would like? So, Deputy Commissioner, come on up. Emily, welcome. And if you could identify yourself for the record.
Good afternoon. Emily Kisicki, Deputy Commissioner of Buildings and General Services. For the record, flying solo today, I will do my best. And if I don't know something, I will have to follow up. And I wanted to introduce Steph Fuller here with us today. She is our new financial director. So she is new to that role here in BGS, but she is not new to BGS. I think she's, how long have you been? 25 years. She's been at Financial Services Division within AOA up until she came home to BGS recently. But she knows BGS like the back of her hand. So
Good.
yeah,
Been there for a while.
yeah. So we're really excited to have her in this role and help us be strategic with our budget.
So Emily, there is this document.
Just gonna pull it up. And we'll just run through it. A lot of this won't be new to you. We put this presentation together geared towards the Appropriations Committee, so we're less familiar with BGS, so we might not need to spend as much time on some of it. But just to highlight our mission, vision, and values. And really, I just summarize it as our mission is to provide space and general services that support state government.
So
So
it's more than mowing lawns.
it is much more than
Because a lot of
mowing.
people still call you buildings and grounds.
Yes, yes, they do. But as you'll see in this presentation, and as many of you already know, we do a lot. We do a lot more than mowing lawns and custodial, although that is very important. So
BGS is really the hub of state government in terms of the ability of our state employees and state government to deliver services to Vermont. If we didn't have BGS, there would be no function of state government, basically.
that's one of our, I think it might be our motto, is serving those who serve Vermont. We're really in that, on the ground service level. How do we help agencies and departments do their work? And then also extends to all visitors and Vermonters who are using state government, who access our facilities, all of the above.
So I'm wondering, before you get into the specifics here, could you just give some examples in terms of what BGS does provide for our workforce as well as Vermonters?
I mean, sure, our core functions go from general maintenance of our buildings, property management. So in lease space, we help take care of the leases and make sure that landlords are providing services under the lease that will give a healthy working environment to state workers. We are responsible for state security services, and that provides protection to state employees and also visitors to our facilities. And we do environmental health and safety work, making sure that our buildings are safe. Like we work closely with OSHA, that the environment is healthy, there are no contaminants or mold, for example, and if there is, how do we remediate that? We operate the fleet and provide savings and efficiencies to state government in managing the fleet program. I mean, and I could go on in some of its detail, but those are just some examples. But like when I think about it globally, it's again, providing services and trying to provide excellent service, customer service to state government, but also all of Vermont by providing efficiency, cost savings, across the board. Like that is our mission, to provide good service in an efficient and effective way that hopefully in the long run will provide safe working environment for state government and hopefully in a cost-effective.
So I think maybe members of the community just think you operate the buildings, but it's a lot deeper than just the buildings.
Yes.
You also have risk management. And do you still have that? Because you had that for a while.
We did. That's moved over to AOA Central. Yes, but we work very closely.
Risk management, the
Risk
insurance.
We do work very closely with them because a lot of times events are things that we become aware of. And then we report that to AOA risk management.
So it's much more than just providing a building for our workforce. I just want to put that on the table.
And that's, I mean, one example too is like Office of Purchasing and Contracting, that's under BGS. That is not, you know, a building related function, but it is a critical function for state government.
So every product that is purchased, like it could be paper, could be anything that's used in state office building, all the cleaning supplies, all of that, but also you also deal with purchasing of furniture for state office buildings, or if a department's going out to bid. You would be, BGS is involved in that. Now, if they go out to bid for a service, are you involved in that? Or is it just more concrete things that they are purchasing that they would go out to bid on?
It can depend. So like generally, like construction, depends how you think about it, but that would flow through us. Some services will flow through us, commodities. And it really, again, it can range from, like you said, paper office supplies up to like salt contracts, for example. And many of our contracts are also available to municipalities to access. And again, the goal is to provide cost savings in our procurement process.
And you also run the surplus property too. So when an office is being transferred or the furniture is kind of being replaced, the furniture goes to surplus property for municipalities or Vermonters or nonprofits to have access to it.
Yes, we have a state surplus program as well as a small federal surplus program where we work with the federal government to dispose of federal surplus as well. Kevin?
On the org chart, is there literally an individual for each one of those functions, or some of those combined under an individual?
Some of those, most of them combined. So, you know, commissioner, deputy commissioner, legal counsel, financial director, and policy and legislative affairs are all one person, some of whom are here in the room. But then all of the rest are led by one person with multiple people under them. And some of them are quite large groups, as we'll get into in more detail.
Okay, thanks.
So
So,
many things that BGS takes care of all of this.
right. And so that's, I love looking at this org chart and just seeing again, the scope of what we do. It is never dull. It's something different every day. But again, so we have the commissioner's office, which isn't a division, but we view ourselves as a unit that is sitting at the top and helps guide the work of our 6 divisions beneath: the planning, property management, design and construction, which is led by Joe Aja, you know well, safety and security, government business services, which has those subunits below it, and VICD, copy center, fleet management services, postal services, surplus property, operations and maintenance, which is the largest division. It makes up about 2/3 of our employee count, and then office of purchasing and contract. So it is quite a variety.
Emily, do all 6 of those people, and it's only because I don't know their names, do they come and speak to us here?
Mhm.
I know Joe does, but
Yeah.
does like operations and maintenance?
He doesn't come in as often. It's John Hebert is the director. He's a longtime BGS employee.
Yeah.
There have been times I think that he's come in.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they all come to it, but is that coming to us, like money wise?
No,
Okay,
this is all general fund. This is
gotcha.
not the capital bill.
Okay,
This is the big bill.
okay.
It's what I said at the beginning.
I know, but I,
House Appropriations Committee go to the policy committees that have oversight of their departments or agencies.
yep,
For the policy committee to weigh into our appropriations committee on their general fund budget request.
all right.
But John Hebert sometimes interacts with capital bill projects as the director of operations and maintenance. In a previous testimony, I think it was last week when we walked through our major maintenance process, the managers in John's division identify those maintenance needs in their individual districts, which then flow through our major maintenance sort of priority list. So yes, and I mean, safety and security, I know Director Bill McSells, he was in last year to talk about his program. So some of the other directors, again, you don't see as much as Joe, but they can and do come.
Thanks.
Next slide, I won't read them all, but really this budget supports our key areas of focus. And these are, I think, by our division, some of our key functions and goals that we work on in the year. So that's, at a high level, these are our focuses, and this is what the budget supports. The next slide, our funding sources. Now, I think the BGS budget is complex. It is made up of primarily internal services fund. That is largely the fee for space program. So that is what agencies and departments as tenants of state-owned space pay for their space to cover our costs in maintaining that space.
So that fee for space comes out of all departments and agencies in state government. And that comes out of the general fund.
Comes out of the general fund, except if an agency or department is in leased space, then it will go to the property management fund.
And it's out of that lease payment that department or agency is making.
Yes. So BGS will, for leases, will actually pay it directly and
Reimbursed.
Yes. So again, Commissioner's office in 6 divisions, we have 348 employees, full-time equivalents. As of our last count, we had 22 vacancies in various states of hiring. Overall, there's a 5.5% increase over the 2026 budget. And we'll walk into, the individual divisions and where you're seeing the ups and downs.
What are some of the pressure points, then maybe you'll get into this, what are some of the pressure points that you're seeing in these certain categories?
So
Anything?
for the most part, increases are being driven by employee steps, insurance costs, COLAs. I mean, that is generally what you're going to see. There are a few other areas where there are pressure points or things that we're watching. Some of that primarily in the fee for space program. Like we're really, Commissioner Manoli and I, working with staff and then our partners at AOA have really been taking a close look at that and making sure that we're keeping that cost as nimble as possible for the other agencies and departments who are paying into that. And we're seeing pressure in some areas like utility costs just increasing. And we don't have a lot of wiggle room in how we manage that. But like that is more expensive. Building maintenance is just more expensive in general, and that's where we're seeing some increases. So a service call that might have cost less a couple of years ago is now costing what it costs, and we don't always have a choice on whether we do it.
So the costs increase, which means spending will need to increase because the cost is increasing. Yeah.
Sure, all 22 vacancies are important. Are any of those such a significant bottleneck that it's important for us to understand? You've got a vacancy that you just can't fill. It's critical and it's hurting some kind of function.
We actually ran into that and hopefully have a good solution for it now, recently, where we are having a really, really hard time filling our skilled trades positions. So master plumber, master electrician, HVAC specialists. And we ended up going for a market factor adjustment, which is a process through the Department of Human Resources and the Secretary of Administration. It's quite a lengthy business case that you have to put together to explain like why you're having such a hard time filling those positions and how we're not competitive with the private market for those skilled positions that require special credentials. And then there's an adjustment applied to that salary that makes it a bit more competitive. And fortunately, we have been able to fill, I think it's 2 of those positions since we've done that. And we're hopeful that we'll see more of that. But that's an example of where we've really been struggling.
What did you call the process again?
Market factor adjustment.
John?
Are there ongoing analyses of things that are performed by some of these FTEs that could be sublet out? Like, for example, are we looking at how much it costs to mow the lawn with staff versus sublet it out on some kind of regular basis?
That is,
Can I just use that as an obvious
yeah.
example?
That is something that we do look at and assess, and there are areas where we do contract out. And one example of that we can talk about in more detail is security services. So we do have uniformed security officers, mostly concentrated here in Montpelier, but they do go other places. But in some more remote locations where there needs to be a security presence, oftentimes with like human services offices, we will contract out. Our primary contractor is Securitas. And so, I mean, I think there can be a tipping point of where it might make sense to have a state employee in that spot. And that's, you know, an area where we can look at, I think, more closely of like where we can contract out, where we can do it ourselves and what's most cost efficient. But all that to say, yes, that is something we do assess.
Sure. Any reductions in force this budget, Emma?
No.
Right.
So of those 22 vacancies, how many of those would be within your architectural part of the department for getting ready for some of our projects that we capital bill?
So
Or are they more trades folks in terms of plumbers, carpenters?
I mean, it's across the board. I know just off the top of my head, and I'd have to pull the list up to speak with absolute specificity, but I know, for example, we have openings in our postal unit that we're currently trying to hire for. I think we have some security openings as well. In terms of design and construction under Joe Aja, we recently filled 2 project manager positions, which we're excited because those 2 were actually quite difficult to fill. Those are working on energy related projects. There is a program chief position that's open and has been open for quite a while. And that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head in design and construction. Yeah.
On transportation, I looked through just to see if it was answered, but I'm just curious, and I should know, what kind of projects do you get money from transportation fund for?
That is for the information centers. So we operate the welcome centers and information centers along the highway. Really proud of that program. And that's in coordination with transportation.
In other words, it is answered in there because it's what it said, and I was like, I had a brain cramp. I was like, what's an information center? But that's,
We used to
I call them rest stops.
We
so
used to build them
Yeah.
way back because the T fund didn't have the capacity to do it. So we picked that up in the capital bill and now it's gone back.
At moment,
to the
so
T
it's-
plant. But we do operate, so if you stop at one of the rest areas, those would be BGS employees who are there, and we do maintain the building, correct?
Yes.
How
We-
many are still open? Because there's been some that have been closed.
There's one that's been down since the 2023 flood, so the Montpelier Visitor Center is still closed. I can't think of any others that have been closed recently.
That was a big thing about 15 years ago, closing this areas.
That was 30 years ago.
That one, so 30?
I got committee, yeah.
No, it wasn't
I was here, so no, it wasn't.
around 20
It
years.
was a big
ago.
one in the 30s. They tried to close Georgia. Well, Dean was still the governor. Georgia
that's way back.
southbound and northbound.
I'm feeling the two of you will debate this later.
Yeah.
You guys should probably both.
So BGS has their little tentacles out there all over
Yeah.
the place, which people don't realize. They just think it's putting up bricks and concrete and mowing a lawn.
And I don't think,
When COVID hit, and everything was closing down and everything was going remotely, BGS was in the thick of all of that. Even though the buildings are being closed, you still were working in terms of how do you provide services, governmental services to Vermonters while everything is shut down.
yes, and I wish we'd included it in this presentation, but one of my favorite documents that we have is a map. It's really for our O&M districts, and it just shows all of the facilities in the state that we provide services to. And you can see, like, we're not just here in Montpelier or Waterbury, like our operations are truly statewide, and that's why we have that district approach with operations and maintenance. But it really is spread out, and even one in Massachusetts for the Big E.
The biggie.
But it is really statewide. And I think that's a goal that Commissioner Manoli and I have talked about, is wanting to get on the road more to visit staff and all across the state.
Brings her back to the days of school construction when she was operating that program.
One more I know, we're trying, human relations, HR, is that sprinkled throughout these, or is that separate from your?
It's separate,
Separate.
so that's under the Department of Human Resources, which is within the agency administration, but it is a separate department. The way we function, I've been tagged with most of our HR functions, so I'm learning a lot about that. And we have some partners that work closely with us. I have a weekly standing meeting with HR where we go over issues, high level things, and we appreciate their partnership. They work well with us, but we don't have a dedicated person in-house.
Thank you.
Okay. So Commissioner's office, this again is a small group of us, 6 FTEs. There's a small decrease over the FY 2026 budget. And that is really due to shifting how we pay for one employee out of the Commissioner's office budget. And that is he's still a BGS employee, a principal assistant who's currently working for the Chief Recovery Office. Eric Kilthorne.
Eric, I was gonna say, is that Eric?
Yes, yeah, so he is still in the Commissioner's office and part of our budget, but we're shifting the way that he's salary is paid. Part of it is coming from design and construction, since he really is working on building recovery issues.
So is his salary being pushed to more the agency of administration? Or is it still coming through BGS?
There's a share, but the BGS share of it is, there's a decrease in the Commissioner's office budget because we're shifting it over to design and construction.
I made the slide before that, which just shows your global BPS budget. There was an increase of a little over 5%. From
Yep.
60.3 million to 63.587. What's the primary cost driver or two there? It's an additional lease space?
No, It is, COLAs, steps,
Slash report.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, 5.5% is a, yeah.
Yeah, so this
Sorry,
is-
I'm sorry. I didn't know this.
no, it's okay. This is just a breakout for the commissioner's office. We have breakouts for all of the divisions. And again, the drivers are generally steps, COLAs, insurance increase, and then some operating cost increases.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no,
It's just that your costs have gone up.
yeah. Okay, and so the commissioner's office, again, we view our role as to support all of our divisions, to guide them strategically, and to really oversee the department, our budget, and our people. Design and construction, this is probably the group that you're most familiar with. This is led by Joe Aja. We are lucky to have him. The overall budget is 5.2 million in the governor's recommend, which is a 6.5% increase driven by insurance, steps, and COLAs. There are 26 full-time equivalents in this division, and generally they're responsible for designing, planning, and constructing and renovating new and existing state-owned space. They also assist other agencies, departments that have jurisdiction over their own infrastructure. And then you'll see for each of the slides, we include some performance measures that the respective divisions are focusing on.
Question, COLAs, is it multiple cost of livings or is that one percentage that is applied to
It's one.
1%?
Yeah. And that is not a process that BGS controls.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
You happen to know what it was? Or is?
It was 2.5 last year, and I think this coming year it's 2 in July, 2 in January, and 2 in July, the following July, or 3 in the following.
About a little over 2 each year.
Well, this coming year, it's gonna be 3. Well, 2 in 20, 1 in 26. Well, July of 26, which is 27,
Okay.
1 in January, and then 1 in July for the.
So there's 3 separate times that
Coming
the
year.
COLAs are put forward.
It's coming, yep, in 27 and 28.
and that's not always the case,
No.
right?
No,
It's being staggered this year.
And salaries are adjusted 3 times a year? No, I'm not understanding.
we'll get an adjustment in July.
Yeah.
And then an adjustment in January of 27, and then an adjustment in July of 27.
So that's what was bargained.
And I think the total is 7% over the 2-year
7%.
contract, yeah.
Probably 2 years.
And I'm going back to Joe's question. Is that what was bargained with the state employees in the contract? So how does that play out in the pay act?
That I do not know.
How does that play out in the pay act? Will the pay act be negotiated, be passed this year? Isn't the pay act on the second year of biennium?
Yeah, it should be, I mean, it should be, yeah, after, they just finished negotiating recently enough, so.
Are any of the COLAs, are they federal COLAs as well that you're impacted with? Or is it just what was negotiated with the state employee contract?
I believe it's just a state employee contract.
And what are you seeing as increase in insurance? What is it, insurance of buildings? Is it health insurance? Is it workers' comp?
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
For this, it's health insurance and then other just benefits that state employees have available to them. Health insurance costs are rising generally. And so again, that is something that just is a cost driver.
So the recommended budget of the 5.2, that's 5.2 million that just goes to your design and construction division, your engineering. Is some of that for your architectural and engineering line item? So we use the fund, goes back and forth between the big bill and the capital bill in terms of which pot picks up your architectural and engineering costs that were affiliated with our capital projects. And it runs about 3.8, now it's probably about 4 million. Is that included in that 5.2 million?
So it is. And that's their operating budget on this other side.
Cole, can you go to the next?
Like. This side. So this side is their operating budget. That does not include their salary and benefits. The next slide is how they get paid, and that's their, basically their salaries and benefits.
So that would be their. Wait a minute, say that again?
So they're two different.
Oh, okay,
So one's, yeah, this one's their salaries and benefits where we track their projects.
okay.
It comes out of the general fund.
So it's 3.9 million.
Yes.
Yeah.
Else you need for her to say her name.
Yes, can you just identify yourself for the record?
Stephanie Fuller, financial director.
So for the committee, there is a cost that's associated with our capital projects. There is in-house architectural and engineering that's done for some of these projects. We don't contract out for some of them. There is a cost to that, which is the 3.989 million. We used to, when the when the general fund gets really tight, we in the capital bill have picked up that amount. And then a few years back, we said, we don't want to keep bonding for this. We want this to go back to the general fund. So that freed up 3.9 million of bonding capacity in our world by shifting it back to the general. So of the 5.2 million, 3.9 of that is for the capital projects, architectural and engineering costs. Got it. Kevin and then Sean.
I don't want to sound like I'm playing gotcha. I just don't understand how there can be a 6.5 increase for the budget year. And yet COLA itself is around 7, and you got increase in insurance and other costs. I don't understand how that formula works. That is, and I'm looking further on and I'm seeing 3.8 increase, 3% increase, 5.4. It's all less than what COLA is. And we're not
We
reducing.
can't budget the COLAs.
Sorry,
We can't budget the COLAs. They're not budgeted.
so the COLAs are not included in the numbers we're looking at?
So first, COLAs don't apply to the entire pie here, right? There's multiple costs built into each individual division's budget. Salary, COLA is a part of that, but it wouldn't be an apples to apples, right? So it is part of the increase.
Right.
But it's not going to represent, like, you're not going to see a 7%, for example, to a 7%.
On top of everything, I understand that. It
Right.
only applies to the
To the salaries. And so like here, there's 26 FTEs.
Yep.
They each get a COLA, which will equate to 3%, right, over a year.
Yeah.
Or if we're talking for this budget year, it's 2%, right? So for those FTEs, it's 2% that we're budgeting for this year.
Okay, I misunderstood. I was hearing that there's 3 COLAs, two or 3 COLAs within a year, adding up to about 7%. And when I'm seeing a total increase of 6.5, and that doesn't even account for the insurance and other increases, it just didn't.
Yeah, and the next COLAs will be over 2 fiscal years.
Okay.
Based on when they get out.
Thank you.
So when you took over, so I just want to get this, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So when you were,
Paying the 3.9.
yeah, with general funds, right?
We were paying, it was general, then
Right.
general fund got really tight. We were in a deficit situation. And so that amount of money for architects and engineering for related to capital projects
Mhm.
got shifted over to the capital bill to pick up.
Got it. But that's not best practices because you're really bonding for payroll.
Correct.
And that's what you don't want to do.
Correct.
Okay, just long term. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to,
And it was done for probably 6 years.
so that's a long time.
It was at least 6 years. And
All right.
We kept pushing back and then gradually over time, the money then went back to the general fund.
Okay, got it. Right, thanks. Just clarity.
So that happens quite often in this building. If one fund is really having trouble, like the T fund, sometimes we've ended up picking up things that could be bonded dollar eligible. Can't be operating, but could be eligible for bonded dollars. We've done that with the T fund before. We used to build salt sheds because they were under a lot of pressure, and we used to build the salt sheds. We did some clean water initiatives with Better Back Roads.
Yeah.
We've done that in the past. And with appropriations, when our general fund has been in a deficit and they've looked to us to help, we've done that. And vice versa. Sometimes we've looked at the general fund to help us. In the past, if the general fund was flush, they would help us. And in fact, when we built the last correctional facility, that was all done with cash. There was no bonded dollars for that. When we did a large tech center, expanded that was 14 million. Done at the same time, we're building a correctional facility for 24 million. That was all done with cash. Because we didn't have the bonding capacity, but the general fund was flush.
Good.
So those are how we operate in the building and adjusting our budgets.
Yeah, moving on to information centers. We talked about this a little bit at the top. I really love to champion this program that we have. They are designed to provide the traveling public with safety breaks, shelter from adverse weather conditions, clean, well-maintained facilities, travel ambassadors who staff the centers, free coffee, which is a popular feature of those centers. Let's buy donation, and free wireless internet access. But we also have a marketing mission that I think the centers do really well at. They partner with local businesses and artisans at each location and do, I think, really phenomenal displays to highlight some of the businesses in the local communities. And then they also have advertising and brochure program, again, designed to encourage people who are stopping by an information center on their travels to go out and see what Vermont has to offer. And we do counts of visitors, and you'll see there's millions of visitors who visit our centers each year, which is great. There are 28 FTEs. There are also agreements that we have with 5 Chamber of Commerce's for some of the centers. So for those 5 centers, the chambers provide the staffing under contract with us. They really just stand in the shoes of the state employees in those locations and do a great job at that. So the cost drivers that we're seeing for this program, the governors recommend being about 5.9 million with a 3.8% increase. The drivers being, again, insurance, steps, and COLA, as well as an increase in the cost of those contracted services with the chambers at those locations. And like we touched on earlier, we are down a center currently with Montpelier. The location was flooded. We don't currently have a plan for what we're going to do to replace that.
Are the ambassadors paid at these places?
Yes.
They are.
Yes.
For state employees.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
The 28 FTEs in our employee staffed locations are state employees, and then the ones that the chamber staff, they are employed through those chambers, but they're all paid.
We do the maintenance.
Yes.
Buildings as well.
What do the operational costs look like for those that are contracted out with the chambers versus those that BGS runs directly? Are they?
They're more cost effective than us running them directly. Is that what you're,
It's an old. 507, 600. It's general.
That's in the next page. It's a question.
No, I'm sorry, Steph was just telling me which line item to look at. No, I don't, we'll have to follow up, I think, with the breakout. I mean, I'll just say, I haven't directly done an analysis on cost effectiveness of contracting out with chambers versus the ones that we run directly. I will say, both do a phenomenal job. But I haven't done a comparison. We can follow up.
Has there ever been any comparison done at all?
I don't know. There may be that I'm not aware of.
Because I know ours is run by the chamber in Bennington.
There would-
I would be very interested to see what the difference is. They do a phenomenal job, but it would be good to compare.
And with Montpelier done, how many are we operating right now?
15, 14. We have 15 total, but only 14 operational right now.
and how many of those are contracted out? 5, 6?
Two up in Williston are phenomenal. They were built and designed beautifully. I feel like they're essential.
You just go there for the coffee, Sean?
Yeah, and the bathroom once in a while.
That's, I recently visited Bennington as part of the Governor's Coffee Day. Our last one was down in Bennington, and I got to talk to some of the chamber staff who were phenomenal. It's a great facility. I don't like to play favorites, but I always stop by Guilford. My parents live in Western Massachusetts, and on my way back, I stopped by and I'm visiting that facility.
Is that one contracted out or is that state? That's state. So which one's the contracted? You got Bennington?
Bennington, Williston,
Williston, North and South, Georgia, South, and Alberg.
What was the other one? North?
Alberg,
No, right, 3 before that. You got,
Williston, North and South, Bennington, and
Williston North and South has trucks and cars in it all the
all the
time,
time.
any time of day. So they're definitely they're used heavily.
yes.
They're very convenient.
Yeah.
And very well-built organization.
Anything else on this? Okay.
The next, postal services. The Postal Center provides state and local entities with access to postal and courier services within state government. It provides Berry, Montpelier, and Waterbury complexes with mail and parcel security screening and delivery tracking to promote a safe work environment. The focus of this unit is customer service, providing centralized postal services, and they also do the pink mail program, which is sort of interdepartment mail. So I will share that we are seeing some challenges right now with unreliable mail delivery. That has been something that the leadership of this unit has been raising to the commissioner's office. There are days where very little mail will come in for across state government, and then the next day we'll have huge deliveries to sort through, and then also just some concerns about timing and frequency of pickups. So that is just something we're monitoring. We have shared concerns with USPS.
So is that unreliable mail services within state government, or is this mail coming in through our federal postal system?
Coming in. So
Our federal postal system,
yes,
and mail going out through our federal postal system.
correct. So drop offs and pickups essentially.
And is that because, well, your postal is centered up in Waterbury, Middlesex.
Middlesex.
So are you using the Waterbury post office or the Montpelier post office? Which one would be delivering mail to the Middlesex
They
facility.
generally use Montpelier.
So that's the issue.
I'm not sure since COVID, I mean, the last flood, if they're still using Montpelier. I would assume, yeah.
I mean, regardless of what USPS one you use, it's been a problem for the last couple of years. It's just a very different organization, let's say.
Yeah.
Be nice about it.
And there's a lot of mail that the state sends and receives that's critical and time sensitive. And so that's really where our concerns lie.
So all the mail that comes in, like say folks who are purchasing, renewing their car registration or submitting their income tax forms, all of that, they do that by snail mail. That goes through our postal services here. Then you distribute that out to the respective departments and agencies.
Yes. And we do have some efficiencies too, like where we send out the mail. So for example, if the treasurer's office is sending out checks, like we will collect, process, get that on its way. But then there's a sort of, I think, a beautiful relationship with our print shop, where sometimes we are printing out communications that then need to be sent out to Vermonters. And so we're able to one-stop shop, print it, package it up, and send it through our postal center. So that, I think, is a real example of efficiency.
So one example is when folks are on Medicaid, and then they have that on a yearly basis, or possibly now it's going to be every 6 months. There is a form that goes out to the recipient that they have to fill out, financial form. So would you be printing out that financial form on behalf of DEVA?
There can be where we enter into agreements to print documents for other agencies and departments, and are mindful of whatever protections apply to the information, and then print it and send it out.
And then when the person fills out those forms, if they do it again in paper form and mail it back in, it goes through the postal system to be distributed over to DEVA for them to open up. So if there's a delay in getting mail, and the delay is in coming in to you folks, then that could jeopardize the recipient getting their information in on a timely manner.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And that's, the program is really proud of, you'll see in the performance measure, % of valid mail delivered same day. That is mail once we get it, right? So what we have control over is our process. We don't have control over the USPS process. But once we get it, we do a good job of making sure it gets to where it needs to go within state government. In terms of the measures, you'll see, again, the number of outgoing and incoming pieces of mail processed. It's been decreasing, and there's still a good volume. And same thing with pink mail. You really saw some dips, especially after COVID and floods, but we are thinking that it'll bounce back now with more people in the office environment.
Yeah. Because people were home. But even they were home in FY '24 and FY '25, so why such a drop this current? Well, we're only halfway through. We're a little bit more than halfway through the current year. But that is a pretty substantial drop.
I'm curious about that drop right there now that we're calling it out.
It seems.
That might be a follow-up item.
Yeah, because even if it was half the year, it's
It'd
180.
be 290 or 190.
That might be a typo.
I was just gonna say, could be a time.
But there's 9 FTEs in this program. So this again is part of the Government Business Services Unit, which is managed by Deb Farrell. She's a manager. She's been at BGS for
Ever.
many decades.
So if folks remember way back, there was the issue with anthrax.
Yeah.
Through. BGS was at the forefront of this, and the Postal Service doing screening, security screening for that. There were times, let me tell you, this brings you way back to civil unions. There were a lot of threats coming to lawmakers through the mail. And our mail had to be opened up and checked because there was a lot of threats being made to us. And BGS, the Postal Service, was in the thick of that one, doing all of that, scanning our mail and even opening it up at times. It was really suspicious. So there was a lot of suspicious mail coming
Yep.
through to us to attack us.
And then just budget number, nothing really to highlight here, except for the 3% increase driven by insurance stuffs and COLA. So no other, major programmatic changes or changes in how we do business, driving an increase. The print shop, I just gave a little preview in explaining how print shop can interact, with Postal. They share a location in Middlesex. The goal of this unit is to provide state government with economic and convenient access to digital printing, finishing, and also leasing out copier services for offices. Their goal is to provide a quick turnaround on state government printing needs. They do legislative printing. So, some of the hard copy things that you have is to buy the print shop. Their goals are to avoid duplicate costs associated with printing, to provide state agencies with information and tool to use the program most effectively, and then meet the ongoing print needs. So they provide printing, again, in addition to the legislators. They provide data printing for DMV, for tax, for labor, and any other print needs that might exist. And they actually, I think, something I didn't know about before I came back to BGS is just how they're able to do some really advanced printing, like posters, some of what you see again in those information centers, some like really glossy, attractive graphic design print jobs. They're able to do as well. So they do a great job.
Again, just as a question, have you ever compared it to contracting it out? What the cost would be compared to having your own division of business service?
That I'm going to have to follow up. I mean, not in the last year since I've been back at
Okay,
BGS.
it's just kind of a question I'm asking here as to comparing,
Yep.
outside of government doing it right. So I'm sure it's probably at a lower cost, but it would be good to see.
Yes, we will try to follow up with that. I'll see if there's been any past analysis done. And I will say one of the advantages to just in terms of efficiency of having our own print shop is time responsiveness. Like we have control over what gets printed when and the ability to prioritize. But yes, we will definitely follow up about a cost comparison.
So I really find it interesting that it seems like there's an increase year to year in terms of how many documents, how many items are printed. And we are such an electronic society and everything seems to be done electronically. And I'm just curious, why is there such an increase in so much printing?
It goes to the bills from 4 specific members.
All right. I mean, there's a lot of printing that happens for the Department of Motor Vehicles, for your
Mhm.
tax and labor, across the board, for your Agency of Human Services, all of that. Why is there an increase? Because everything has gone so electronic.
So it would be interesting. I haven't looked back to see like what did it look like 10 years ago. This is just the last few years. So it'd be interesting to see if really there's been a drop over time and we're seeing a bit of a pickup. Again, especially as we come back from COVID and we have more in-person presence, that might be part of it. But of course, there are some things that have to be printed, right? Like again, checks, important communications that need to be mailed. So that could be part of it too. There might be more communications that are going out, mailed to Vermonters. I don't know exactly what it is, but we can look into it.
Now, for this and for all the projects in general, are there some kind of productivity metrics? Like we're getting so many pieces printed per FTE, or like was there, 18 FTEs 20 years ago, or any sort of like utilization metric. So, I mean, is there somebody putzing around 6 hours a week because they got nothing to do? And it's not specific to this particular department, but to all departments. Are there, like, how is that measured?
So,
Like staff productivity?
yeah, I mean, I will say, just as a general principle, BGS employees are busy, and that we don't have a lot of excess capacity. Specific to like the performance numbers, again, like a lot of our operations are, you can quantify it, right? So here, you know, how many pieces of paper were printed and processed? How many pieces of mail did you process? And we can tie those back to the number of employees and their time. So that is an area we can do a comparison. I don't, again, at least I haven't been involved since I've been back at BGS and sort of quantifying the output of individual employees. And I'm not aware of a time that's been done. We do have performance measures and goals that we set and measure. They're usually not broken out per individual employee.
Like, for example, what would it look like if you had to get this work done with 10 FTEs? Is that impossible, or is there not something that's pondered? Like, I don't know what the historical number is in this department. I mean, we just happen to be on this slide. I have no axe to grind with a print shop. Just to be explicit about that.
Yeah. Well, I would say in particular, the print shop employees are quite busy. And I do know we reduced one of our night shifts. Because of staffing constraints. But I mean, I would say, like, generally speaking, we evaluate positions, especially when we have a vacancy, to ensure that it needs to be filled. And there are times like that there's a process with AOA, with DHR, where we review a position and say, you know, does this need to be filled? Can it be swept? Like that kind of conversation. We went through that exercise recently for 2 positions that have been vacant for quite a long time. And one of them was, oh, you know what, we really need this position and we can articulate a need and justify it. And for the other, we were able to say, you know what, we don't need to fill that one, and we let that go. So that is something we do on an ongoing basis. Our general posture isn't, you know, looking to see if we can cut positions. You know, that's not generally what we've been doing actively. I mean, my sense in working for the past year at BGS has been the positions that we have are needed, and we haven't had that exercise.
John and then Kevin.
This is more probably for Steph, but just help me with this, Steph. On the budget for the copy center, which is one behind here, you've got the health insurance classified employees as a negative 24,000.
That's the changes from last year to this year.
Gotcha. So it's less. So that went down from the year before.
And that can be based on like an individual employee changing their coverage. They might have had a family member drop off their plan.
Right.
Something like that can impact it.
But that 24,000 symbolizes all the people working in that copy center?
Yes. It would be everyone, not just one individual, but it could be whoever.
Right. Okay, because then I looked at the one for the fleet management and went up 80 grand. I'm just trying to wrap my head around how those numbers are, you know.
Somebody may have didn't have the state health insurance.
And they
plan,
took it.
it out.
They
And
got married.
They got married.
Family.
Right?
Okay, so it's just those ups and downs like that.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Fleet management.
Oh, this is where Joe wanted to weigh in.
Oh,
And he leaves.
Fleet management services, the goal is to provide efficient, safe, and reliable fleet vehicles in a cost-effective manner. We strive to ensure that state travel is done at the lowest possible cost while still meeting the operational needs of our users. We are trying to maximize utilization of fleet, and we also have a mission to increase the use of alternative fuel vehicles, including EV, and there's statutory directive to do that. So some of our strategies include use of telematics in vehicles to ensure we have informed decisions, seeing how the vehicles are used generally, and the miles that they're being driven. Implementation of automated motor pool system with self-service features. It's really easy. I use it when I need to travel. I can go pick up keys at the fleet headquarters right here in Montpelier. And then we also inform agencies and departments annually of their high mileage drivers, which means they've surpassed the break-even point where it's more cost effective to use fleet through a leased vehicle versus reimbursing the employee for their mileage. We're working on sending those letters out right now, actually. And that's just a communication tool. You will find savings if you utilize a fleet car versus paying this employee for a reimbursement. So 642 vehicles in the fleet, 60% are alternative fuel vehicles. There's 10 FTEs in the program. 47 of the vehicles are in the general motor pool. So that kind of functions as a rental shop. Again, capital for a day. I needed to use a state vehicle. I was able to go pick up the car through the motor pool at our headquarters here. And it was really easy. And I had a brand new car and it was awesome. But then there are 595 vehicles that are assigned to an agency and department. And it's really like them having a leased vehicle owned by VGS that they then use under a lease agreement. And those are for, I think of some examples of programs that really use those include like agriculture. They're on the road all summer visiting sites, A&R, similar, DCF who are out on the road visiting folks. So those are some examples of who are leasing the cars. And then AOT has jurisdiction over their own fleet. Our jurisdiction is primarily over passenger vehicles.
So I know Joe was really, he's coming because I know this is something Joe was really focused on. So you might have to go over some of this information when Joe comes back in. Okay, and then Sean.
When you get to that point where you've identified a high user who and the department might be benefit from having them switch to a fleet, do they ever become then like a regular use? Like, do you just give them a car?
Well, we notify the agency or department head and say, this is your list of high vehicle or high mileage users where you pass the threshold for effectiveness, cost effectiveness, and you should consider leasing a fleet vehicle. And those often do materialize into them acquiring a lease for that individual or using the motor pool, depending on the circumstances.
And then that person just takes that car for, like, does it become their car, I guess? Or do they have to go?
It can depend. So you can have a lease vehicle that's kind of assigned to your department that multiple users can use. Or if there's someone who's on the road all the time, they might be a field investigator or something like that, then the car might be assigned to them.
Gotcha.
And then there are parameters on how they can use it. It is for state business. And then we have parameters too on like how often you take a vehicle home, all of that. So there are, again, guidelines and rules around how those are used.
How do you enforce that? How can you enforce that? Is there a check-in regularly on terms of how much mileage they've put on? I mean, how do you enforce that they're not using it for private use?
So there are mileage checks. So for example, if they have a lease vehicle and is similar to like an enterprise, there is a number of miles that you're leasing. And if you go over that, there's an overage. And if it was really significant, then there might be an examination of, well, where was this vehicle being driven? Like, does this make sense or not? And then, if need be, there is telematics data. I will say we don't sit around tracking where people are going on an ongoing basis, but if the need arose, we would have the ability to do that.
Okay, so I got Sean, I've got James, I've got Kevin, and I've got Joe.
I know this is an interesting one. So the motor pool utilization, I'm assuming that means 50, like that in first number in fiscal year 24, 54% is the amount, the cars that are being used on a yearly basis?
Daily basis.
Yeah, so if we have 10 cars in the lot, on average, we want to see it out, or that's what we're seeing.
Yep.
And again, I will say we're talking about how do we increase utilization of fleet, make sure again that it's performing as it's supposed to, how do we get the word out? And a lot of this, again, returning from a more in-home posture or from COVID, some of those habits changed. And so now it's like, let's get the word out again about fleet, what it offers and really how
Okay.
convenient it is.
And then the amount of customer cost savings, like, what does that mean? Because I don't know what it means.
I think that's avoided reimbursement for mileage.
And that's avoided for to the state, $58,000 that year?
Yeah.
Okay,
That would be like if I was gonna submit a mileage reimbursement versus taking a fleet. That's what it costs the states.
gotcha. I see. And so the 5,296 number of motor pool rental days are days that we used it, but we didn't have an enterprise or something like that. We weren't paying someone else to do that.
We weren't
Right.
paying mileage to that person's private vehicle.
Oh,
This is the difference between what it costs for to pay them. mileage.
right. I'm just trying to understand
Yeah.
what we're looking at. That's all.
But I do actually, now I'm looking at these more closely. I do want to follow up because I don't think that this is a statewide number.
No, I don't know where that number came from.
The 5290, because
Yeah, right.
I'm just trying to figure, because if you have 642 cars, that seems low. That's all.
Yeah, and what I want to specify is this per customer?
Okay.
Aggregate, and I just need to clarify.
Okay, that's all. Thanks. I'm not trying to get you. I'm just trying to understand the numbers.
Now I'm looking at it, like, that is a good point of
Okay,
clarification.
that's all. Thanks.
Yeah.
James, Kevin, and then Joe.
Mine's just pretty basic. So somebody has a state car. Obviously Johnny can't take it to the Red Sox game. That's a no.
Right.
But is it to the point where Johnny on the way home decides he's going to go to the grocery store? I mean, the military is pretty tough about that stuff. Like, how strict is the rules?
Depends if it's on the way home. We're 10 miles out of the way.
Yeah, not having the policy in front of me.
Okay.
No, yeah, it is, right, there can be a gray area, but I think de minimis, like if it's in the course of your business, if you're stopping by to get a coffee when you're headed to, when I was going to Capitol for a day, I stopped to get lunch, I mean, and so that wasn't strictly, it was part of my workday. I had to get lunch that day, but was that like going from point A to point B? I think if it's incidental to your state business, right? And so I would say, yeah, no, I mean, it's a great question. But I think, again, if the vehicle is a take-home vehicle and you're going home and you need to stop at the grocery store, I don't think that's an area that,
It's on the way home, unless you go 20 miles out of the way.
yeah.
It's on the way home.
They attest to personal mileage at the
They
end of each
do,
fiscal
yeah, there
year,
are-
each calendar year, so they get taxed on that.
Yes.
Personal usage.
Interesting. Thank you.
Kevin, and then Joe.
Once again, I'm not trying to play gotcha, but with 4 years or 3 years of experience, my simple math says to get to 50% utilization, you cut your fleet in half. I obviously don't understand the way it works.
Yeah, and this motor pool is just those 47 vehicles. So the vast majority of fleet are leased vehicles that are housed in agencies and departments who are going to be using them regularly. The
We
motor,
need to go back and explain how the vehicles are distributed.
oh yeah, so there's 47 vehicles that are available for daily motor pool rental. And most of them are out here, Green Mountain Drive, where it's like a daily rental. If you have a 1-day thing where you're going to a meeting and you're going to take a state vehicle instead of your own personal vehicle, I mean, I've even gotten same-day rentals. And so we have those cars available. And on any given day, what we're seeing lately is about 50% of them will be on the road at a given time. And we have them in a few other locations. I think there's some in Burlington. There's some maybe down in Springfield. Again, it's not a large number statewide, 47, but they're there, they're available if someone who isn't a heavy user of state vehicle, but needs it on the off day, they're available for that. So of the 47, 23 are being used at any given time, approximately.
So I guess my question isn't so dumb. Why don't we go to half the vehicles if you're trying to get
Yeah,
better utilization? And I mean, like, there's a lot of costs associated with
yeah.
47 vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a good conversation that we can have with fleet, make sure that the number is right. Where we have a challenge is that day that a lot of them are being used. And I'll go back to, again, Capital for a Day as an example of that. When I needed that vehicle, so many were reserved because there were so many folks going out on the road. I mean, it's great. That's what we love to see, but that's where on a day where a lot of people are out on the road, you need those available. Or, I mean, they could drive their own vehicle and get reimbursed. That is an
Schedule
option.
ahead. And there's no, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so I do understand the numbers. Thank you.
okay.
But a church isn't built for midnight mass. And they're not. And a utilization rate, I mean, I've run 125, 150 car fleets, could be somewhere around 80%. It's what's viable if you actually get a hunt for your own meat. But even 70%, 70% should be a benchmark. I mean, at 50%, you've got vehicles that are rotting in place. I'll guarantee you're buying batteries every 90 days and the brakes are rotting because they're just not moving.
So I will, sorry.
And they're assets that are just depreciating in place.
Yep.
And the second piece of that is you may have 595 vehicles that are assigned to other state agencies. But how are those vehicles utilizations being measured? Like, how many of those vehicles are just sitting in an agency driveway most of the time? And I'll guarantee you that number is not zero.
So, two things. One, I think you might have been out of the room, but at the top, I shared that we are actively discussing how we can increase fleet utilization. I think that use had dipped after COVID, frankly, and we are talking about strategies to get the word out about fleet. That really it is the policy of the state that you go with fleet first before you go with mileage reimbursement. So we see a need to communicate one, that fleet exists. Some state employees who have come in more recently might be unfamiliar with it, might be unfamiliar with how easy it is to use. And actually the state guidance and requirements around using fleet. So we do see a need to sort of get the word out and increase utilization. With respect to the leased vehicles, again, we do closely monitor usage. We're able to monitor mileage. We have ongoing conversations with our leasing entities regularly about the vehicles they lease and the mileage that they lease it for, because we don't want them to be paying for more mileage than they actually need. And oftentimes we actually see that they're using more than they've paid for. And that's when we need to do a readjustment. And that can be difficult when it hasn't been planned for or budgeted for. So I will say this is something that, agencies and departments actively work with us on. I can't say all 595 are utilized to the max, but what I can say is that they are utilized. We do monitor it. We do communicate with those lessees regularly to make sure that, again, they're not paying for something they don't need to be paying for.
Is it possible to see more granular data on those 595 vehicles?
Yep. Mary, did you have your hand up?
I was just going to say, when a number of the state employees were working remotely, how was the fleet taken care of? And did you have the utilization? Are these numbers reflected in there?
So these are only performance measures since FY24. I will say that we still operated, BGS didn't stop when more employees went remote. I would have to follow up with exactly what the numbers looked like in the height of COVID.
So what is the average age of your fleet vehicle? Are they 2 years old, 4 years old, 10 years old?
We have a set replacement and maintenance schedule. And older vehicles often go through the surplus program.
Is it done by miles or is it done by year?
I think it's typically done by miles. I would have to, and I'm happy to provide more granular data about the program and about these vehicles specifically. I don't remember off the top of my head.
There's a lot of interest in this. Also, it'd be good to have your maintenance costs and repair costs for those, for vehicles. And I understand the motor pool utilization. I get where you need 47 vehicles, because you got different parts of the state that you have to have covered. I mean, you've got the Chittenden County area, you've got central Vermont, you've got southern Vermont, east and west, and you've got the Northeast Kingdom. If you want folks to use a fleet vehicle for a day or two, if they're going somewhere versus their own vehicle, that has to be fairly accessible. They don't need to drive 2 hours to get to a fleet vehicle. That defeats the purpose.
And I will share too, that sometimes there are programmatic needs for a vehicle that they really need an assigned vehicle, and it might not be based on vehicle number of miles driven, but it might be based on other factors. And I'll give an example. Again, DCF employees who are going on the road, maybe they don't hit the mileage
use their own
threshold, but they
vehicle.
don't want to use their own personal vehicle. Or even within BGS, our security officers we have dedicated through the lease program, vehicles to do patrols, to visit sites. And again, I'd have to look, do we meet that mileage threshold? But I'm just trying to, sometimes you might look at it and it might not hit a mileage target, but there is an operational need for that vehicle or advantage to us having it in-house. And again, avoid the use of personal vehicles. I would not want our security officers driving their personal vehicle to go de-escalate a tense situation.
I say, it could vary by vehicle class too. I mean, if you have a handicap accessible van somewhere, okay, that might be a very real need, but it may also have a very low utilization rate, even though it's a very real need.
Mhm.
So, but you can't really see that here, obviously. You see the fleet right there.
And how many vehicles do you have that are alternative fuel? Because I know in previous testimony, we have looked towards vehicles that are hybrids or even all electric, but it really depends where that vehicle is going to be used. If it's short trips in an urban setting, you're more apt to use an alternative fuel vehicle. If it's a long trip from north to south, you're more apt to use a gas-powered vehicle.
So there is a statutory directive that the fleet purchase alternative fuel vehicles and electric vehicles. I can't remember the exact threshold of that. I think right now 60% are in that category. I want to say the statutory directive is even 75%. That can be, again, a cost driver, but it does provide fuel savings. I'll share that sometimes agencies and departments might want a more rugged vehicle. Again, the example of a DCF employee who might be going over back roads and wants an SUV, for example, whereas, based on cost and statutory considerations, what we have more of is a Prius, right? And so that's where sometimes we have a bit of a tension between what our users want and what we have. So,
Mary, then Connor.
And within the fleet, do you have a number of just electric cars?
we do.
And how have they performed in this 6 weeks of low temperatures? Because I know the public transit is having some issues because the buses won't start or they can't, what's the word I want to use? They can't plug them in to be charged. And so what do you do with that fleet and how many are there if you've got a number?
I don't recall off the top of my head which
Three.
How many?
380.
No. Not EV alone. Alternative.
Alternative.
Yeah,
But I'm saying just.
right. Just
electric.
EV. I don't know that breakout. I'm gonna have to follow up. I don't think it's high. I know we have a few example ones and I haven't heard of any issues with the cold, but I'm gonna have to follow up on that.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Connor?
Yeah, sure. Emily, I remember this 15, 20 years ago when it was being rolled out, there was some pushback to the program in cases like, I'm a state employee, I've got a Nissan Pathfinder, and you're handing me a Ford Focus, during adverse weather conditions, or maybe some other accommodation. So Are you still hearing a lot of that, or is there, maybe there's different accommodations than there were that long ago?
Yeah, I think the example that I'd given of like employees who are having to go out, yeah, in winter weather, and they really would prefer an SUV or something like that. And we're up against sort of our directives, right, to find alternative fuel and cost effectiveness for cars, and that's where we can have attention. We try to accommodate those requests, and I think we are Commissioner Manoli and I, and working with the fleet manager, are trying to explore ways that we can support those requests, because it's really important. We want them to have a vehicle that they feel safe and comfortable in. So yes, I will say I have heard of some state employees wanting an SUV specifically. Yeah.
Thanks.
For winter conditions.
Okay, so just, this is new to us, and I really appreciate you going over this. Just a bigger picture, just question, and you may have said it earlier, but I missed it. So this is just the cost of the employees in these situations, right? So this isn't like, so it'd be great to also see what fleet management costs the state as a whole, right? Or not? Is that something different? Like, do we get to?
Well, that's where I'm wondering what the 5.4% increase is. Is
Well-
it just the salaries and benefits?
Well, this is just for salaries for those 10 people.
Also including a purchase of new vehicles, the
No.
maintenance of vehicles?
No.
It's 1.3 million.
Let her answer here.
This is the operating costs. This is the salaries and operating costs for fleet for their own operations. But the way that we cover costs of the vehicles is through the charges for the leased out vehicles, the motor pool, et cetera. So that's built into the rates. Do you have anything to add?
No, it's their internal service fund and
Yes.
It's like their fee for space.
it's like
It's like fee for space for cars.
We pay for it with that internal service fund and we get it back through the revenue of what we charge for their lease or their motor.
So if they were to use a vehicle for one day, what is the lease fee for that to that department?
I have to look that
I
up.
have to
I'm
check.
I'm
It
sorry.
would depend on the mileage.
It would-
for that day.
I think the motor pool is a daily use
It's daily
fee.
use, yeah, I think.
I think there's interest in the committee to really go down deeper into this budget in terms of what is it really costing to maintain the vehicles? What are your repair bills for that? I think also it's what you're seeing in terms of the budget changing on that end, not so much on the employee side of it, but the functioning, taking care of those vehicles, because we all have vehicles. We know that there's costs involved. But are you increasing the fleet size? Or is it, if there's increases to the budget, it's more usage of it possibly? Or that inflation is the cost of insuring a vehicle is going up? So we'd like to have some comparison on that end. And you also addressed how often you change the vehicles, but it would be good to know at what mileage do you tend to change them at? Is it 50,000 or is it 100,000? So as you get older, you're gonna have more repair costs for that.
Am I right that we do recoup some costs by going through surplus for fleet?
Yes,
Yeah.
we sell the vehicles through state surplus, through our auction annually, if we sell them, so those costs they go back because it's the internal service fund, the costs go back to fleet.
But that's not in this
No.
budget.
This is not anything to do with that piece of it.
Okay, and
It's just their operations.
then that budget, like, I'd love to see that budget too, but if we can,
Mhm. I think there's a lot of interest about
Hear
this.
what we're actually doing.
well, just to know what it, just to be
Right.
more familiar with it, that's all. You know,
Kevin?
I believe you said that there's legislation that targets how many alternative fuel vehicles we should be buying.
Mhm.
Since you offered granularity, I mean, to see the electric or hybrid versus standard gas would be very helpful, I think, because we're actually telling you how many you gotta have. And
It's,
if the EVs are underutilized, we need to change that legislation.
They can make it, yeah.
change that legislation. I mean, that's where we might actually make a difference.
I think it depends on what part of the state you're in too for the EVs. If you're in Chittenden County, you can use that a lot easier than if you're in the Northeast Kingdom.
And I do, yeah, we'll have some more information on we don't have a high number of specific EVs. The vast majority are going to be hybrids. Again, I know we have a lot of Priuses.
And that ties into what Connor brought up, that if folks are doing a lot of back roads, it's mud season or during the winter, they're going out there, they don't want a Prius, they want a vehicle that can, with more clearance and more traction.
I mean, it's a difficult balance, right? Because with the EVs or the alternative fuel hybrids, we get fuel savings. So it might not be the preferred vehicle, but it might be the most cost-effective vehicle. So that's what
Your cost benefit analysis. So we do want to do a deeper dive into this. So we're going to have to we're not going to get through everything today. We'll have to schedule you back beginning of next week because we're going to have to make this may be a good stopping point.
Did you think that the fleet part was gonna be this many questions?
you know what?
Hey, we finally found something we understand.
Yeah, we all have vehicles, so we all understand that.
Yeah,
Constituents think my car is a VGS vehicle.
Yeah, they said, well, I've had people say, did the state buy your car?
Yeah.
No.
Didn't even buy your coffee.
So when they
Um,
also ask if you.
I think this may be a good spot to stop because surplus property, we did allude to that a little bit, and that may be a bigger conversation too. Because there's a lot of activity that happens within surplus property.
yeah, and then property management and our fee for space program, which is really our largest program with our most employees and and a complex organization operation.
And if you can
And-
do a
sorry.
little deeper dig on those pieces where they not be as long, if you've got actual figures and things that you can present. Because you didn't really have a lot under these sections that we were asking you more about.
Sure. And we haven't gone through any of your purchasing and contracting either, right?
Right.
You're gonna, yeah, because there's questions, we have some questions on that. As well, in terms of, the inflation, there's some of the driving forces, what are, for the inflation. And how frequent are the contracts escalating at all? And what's the procurement timeline? Is that affecting any delivery of folks for different departments or agencies too? So there's some questions there that the committee has for some of that. And I know that the energy audit, you haven't gone into that piece yet either. That's not covered here, but there was the state auditor had the audit report about the state energy program at some point. I think we want to get into that.
We provided testimony in Senate Natural Resources and Energy last Friday. So I went in with the manager of our energy program and provided testimony on that. We have a slide deck.
Let's see if we can, I think we're pretty booked up this week unless there happens to be an opening. We'll probably have to continue this next week, early in the week, because we have to make our recommends to Appropriations Committee by the 20th, which is next week, Friday of next week. Maybe Wanda will take care of it from there. You did fine, Emily.
Thank you.
Great, thank
Thanks,
you.
Emily.
Thank you so much.
You're up. We get to do DOC next, not today.
Thank you for coming,
Later.
Wayne.
Thanks for letting me in the room.
Yeah. Just like old times almost, huh?
You didn't let me ask any questions.
This is true. Do folks want to take a quick break? 5 minutes?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, take a 5-minute break. John, did you see my email?
I did.
Did you have a chance to?
Yes.
Right.
I
Look at fleet data every day.
We're gonna have
Something I do.
ability to vote.
can see your eyes. So, have you ever seen Grease, the movie Grease?
Now you can.
Every day, 6 days a week.
You
do, man.
That's
what I do.
Come up
Yeah.
with it.
That's how I make money.
I just come in excited about which analogy you're gonna use next.
Oh.
Reaction.
Try to mix it up.
So happy. I'm trying to channel my inner Joe about the Priuses. The best I could do was. He thought us instead of flour, but you expect me kids.
More than it needs. It's fine. I mean, you can take,
If
if you're gonna do open wheel driving,
Yeah.
take a Corolla. and accomplish the same thing.
Because the
Yeah.
fire.
If you're just gonna be in the
they'll
interstate.
start a fire.
That was a great investment.
Yes.
That's what I said, $8 fire.
We don't need, we could have, there's nowhere else where you need that $8 million.
Send you 2 hours. to take. Oh, it's not committed.
That's why it takes me like. They'll talk about the same
But
thing.
this is what you-
So.
And not picking on.
So, yeah, so that was my reaction. It's been this really. It fit very well. But yeah, I saw a cardio last week, so they paid the chest. So I felt the thing. To the.